What's up, YouTube family? Guys, I decided to venture into saltwater aquariums again. This time, this tank is going to be a primary SPS tank. I'm going to have a few softies, as you can see in the video. I have some softies in there, maybe add a couple more, but 90% of this tank will be SPS. Before I really get into the meat and potatoes of this video, however, I just want to send a quick shout out to Houston, Texas. Guys, I live in Houston, Texas. The last couple of days sucked. Never saw that much water in my life. Never saw that much water on my street in my life. Thank God I am one of the lucky ones. Although my street was flooded, my house was bone dry. So thank God for that. I will say, however, I am one of the lucky ones because I have colleagues and family members that were not so lucky. So my prayers go out to them. However, that's not the focus of this video. Just want to kind of put that out there for those folks that may be impacted by Harvey. With that said, guys, so I decided to start up my reef tank. I would absolutely say I'm not a beginner. If anyone who's visited my page before, I've posted videos of my previous reef experience that I had before I moved to Hawaii, which is why that tank is no longer operational. And I've been back in Houston for a couple of years now, and I decided to start up another reef tank with some more difficult corals, which are the SPS kind. So let's talk about the equipment that I'm using, and then I'll go over some of the parameters that I have in my tank. I'll go over some of my successes, and then you guys can help me out with some of my problems, hopefully. So with the equipment, I wanted a tank that wasn't too big. Something that was big enough for me to have a nice display of beautiful, very colorful corals, but not too big to take up the space that I had in my home. So I decided to use the Planet, or purchase the Planet Aquarium's crystalline series. This is a 36 size, so the display is roughly 65 gallons. It did come with a Trigger Systems sump, the Crystal series, I believe. And you know, the sump is very minimalist, but holy cow, it works really, really, really good. I mean, the compartments are just the perfect size for you to put all the type of equipment in there. It's well thought out. So big ups to, you know, Trigger Systems on that. Um, Lighting, you know, before I had before I got into reef aquariums again, you know, when I was keeping my last tank, the best of the best was, you know, some double-ended metal halide bulbs and maybe some VHOs or T5 fluorescent lights as accent lights. That was the best of the breed. And now it looks like LED has, you know, or is moving into that slot. I decided to purchase two of the XR30 Gen 4 Radions, and holy smokes, those lights are incredibly bright. Now, one thing that I do like about LEDs, guys, and for those of you who do not own LEDs, or if you're thinking about switching, um, when I had my metal halides, you know, I had timers, multiple timers, right, to kick on the actinics or the fluorescent lights first. And then I had to set another timer for, you know, the metal halides, and then, you know, turn off the metal halides and then turn off the actinics to kind of simulate, you know, the sun rising and the sun going down. With LEDs, it kind of does it, you know, for you, and it's really cool how throughout the day it actually adjusts the intensity to make it more natural. So I really love how programmable LED lights are. They're also incredibly bright. Um, you know, I thought running my lights in this aquarium at 40% would be more than enough. Actually, yeah, more than enough for the corals that I had, and they were starting to bleach. So I quickly kicked them down to 25%, and I'm getting growth, and the colors are stable. So, um, yeah, that works. Now, I did have a time, guys, deciding whether to go with the pros or the standards, and these are the standard XR30s. And the reason I decided to do that was just for me a couple. Number one, I didn't see a huge benefit of the additional color channels um, that Ecotech placed in their Pro line. And I know that the Pros have more power, they're more powerful, they have more wattage, but most folks that are running LEDs are kicking them down quite a bit anyway. So I didn't really see a benefit there. So I decided just to get the standard XR 30s. And again, I have two of them on this aquarium, and I don't regret it. Like I said, my coral growth is fine. As far as water movement inside of the aquarium, I chose two of the Ecotech MP10s, and I thought they weren't going to be enough, but I can tell you that placement is really everything with the pumps. Initially, I had them placed towards the middle of the aquarium, and in my opinion, they weren't moving enough water. And so I thought about getting some MP40s, but watch the video on YouTube. It's amazing how much stuff you can get off of YouTube. The reefing community is huge here. Watch a couple of videos on YouTube, and holy smokes, you kind of put them towards the top of the tank, not enough where they're gonna create that tornado effect and suck in air, but just below that, and you'll be amazed at how much water these pumps can move, and that in fact they did. Now, so again, lighting is the Radions, the XR30. These are Gen 4s, and I have MP10s for water movement in the inside of the aquarium. Now, as far as my protein skimmer, and you'll see that here in just a few moments. Huge Precision Marine fan here. I had Precision Marine in my previous tank, and again, boy, have things changed. You don't really see them around so much, or at least they're not in retail or from the stores that I've went to. And so did a lot of research on skimmers, and I found the Nios line to be number one. They came highly recommended by a local fish guy, but looking at the reviews, they were also highly recommended. So I decided to purchase a Nios 120. That was by far the best decision I ever made. This skimmer is a boss. So you can see the quality of skimmate that this thing is producing, and this is probably, guys, maybe 2 or 3 days worth of skimmates, maybe four at the longest. And remember that my tank isn't heavily stocked, but it's able to pull out some thick, green, nasty stuff out of the tank. Now, that could be extra food or whatever the case may be, but the tank gives you, the skimmer gives you more options. And the better the skimmer you have on there, um, the less likely your mistakes are going to be recognized in your tank. That's the main system pump, of course. That's the Ecotech M1. It has a T that powers also my media reactors, and I'll get into that in just a moment. That is my Comore X4 Wi-Fi doser. It's a great doser. The Wi-Fi portion is really clunky and it's frustrating. You'll be on the phone with CoreView for sure. But anyway, guys, so I just want to focus again on this freaking amazing skimmer. And actually, really quick, I have an Arlo camera set up there. That's what that guy is. I have it tied to a Wink system, which is like a home automation piece. Excuse me. And it does all kind of cool tricks. But anyway, back to my skimmer, or the Nios line in general. If there was only one drawback that I would have to say on this skimmer, is that it doesn't have a drain port for the skimmate. But the more I think about it, the more I kind of glad that it doesn't, because one thing on a skimmer, what you want to do, guys, is you want to make sure that it's clean really all the time. And honestly, if I'm going to be completely honest with myself, if this thing had that skimmate drain port, I wouldn't really worry myself with it all that much. With this, I'm going to have to go in there at least once a week or so and dump the cup and clean it out. And that's a good opportunity, like I said, to clean it. And a skimmer that is clean is going to be much more efficient. Now, one thing that I see quite a bit, and you don't want this, guys, is tea-colored skimmate. That means that your system is pulling out too much water. I mean, that's what your skimmate really, for the most part, should look like. This stuff is really dark and green, and it's very smelly. Here are my top-off container, or not top-off containers, but my dosing containers. You have the part A there, the B, and of course the magnesium. You'll definitely use part A and B more so than you will use magnesium. Again, that's the main system pump. And you guys see the Precision Marine ATO container. That's a 5-gallon container that's powered by this Tunes ATO unit. It works really well. I have to adjust the flow, but it does work really well. And that's the sensor there. Let's see. So these are my two little fishes media reactor. You can't really see both of them, but the one on the front has, of course, the polyester stuff. The one on the back has deactivated charcoal. This combo, guys, keeps my tank crystal freaking clear. That water is really, really, really ridiculously clear. Under normal circumstances, this is not something that I would normally do because media tends to be the home for bacteria, which creates later on nitrate in your system. My system, I believe, because of how awesome and great that skimmer is, it's ultra low nutrients, guys. I have zero nitrates in the system, and that's a T right there. Zero nitrates in my system, and I have my phosphates are ridiculously low. I mean, really, 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 really low. And it took a HANA checker, the phosphorus checker, in order for it to pick up anything. And once I do the conversion, I did the conversion, it was 0.003 is what the nitrate, or not nitrate, but phosphate is, which is zero, basically. This is my Kelso H80 that currently powers my Kato growth. I'm actually changing this guy out for a 380. And the reason why is just remember, guys, that your algae is competing for light, and it's going to go wherever it can to get that light. That's a 200 micron filter sock. But anyway, it's going to go wherever it can to get that light. So many times what we'll do is we'll spend $1,000, $2,000 on some very serious lighting for our coral and spend $20 or so for lights for our refugium. Again, that's another view of the X4 doser. I'm going to use that last one for something. It's just like a miscellaneous thing. And just remember that if you don't want any of the algae growing in your display tank, then give it a light source in which it can grow where you want it to grow, which is, again, in my refugium, or in the refugium. I do have a pretty decent cleanup crew, like I said. That Selfin, Blenny, and some snails really keep everything nice and trim in the main display. But I want everything to really grow down here, and it's great for nutrient export where it can be harvested. But guys, for the most part, this is really my system. If you have any questions or anything, let me know. Now, I'm gonna get into my parameters. This video is probably gonna loop around a little bit, but that's fine. I'm gonna try to make this as short as possible. Thank you guys for hanging tough with me. Um, so the parameters of this tank, like I said, this tank is absolutely an ultra low nutrient tank. My only issue that I have so far, and it's not really a big deal, is my pH. My pH is on the borderlines of acceptable. It's 7.8 to 7.9, and it sticks there roughly 24 hours a day. I would like my pH to be 8.3, but again, I'm not going to chase the pH. But if you guys have any recommendations, I'm absolutely open to hearing them. And of course, if you have any questions. But I'll go over some of my measurements. So the temperature of the tank, guys, generally sits at 77 degrees, or not generally, it sits at 77 degrees 24/7. Again, pH is between 7.8 and 7.9. Generally in the middle part of the day, it'll read at 7.9. And this is the HANA Checker pH meter that I'm using for that. My salinity, it stays rock solid at 0.025. The alkalinity currently is 7.9, which is pretty good. My calcium levels in the tank is 447. Magnesium is 1320 last time I tested that, which was yesterday. Now, I would say all this equipment is great, guys. It's going to make keeping your reef easier, and I'm the person of convenience. I believe that if something takes a lot of work to do, you're not going to do it consistently. So in that respect, I absolutely do not mind spending a lot of money on equipment if that's going to make me keeping the tank better and easier. The biggest challenge for me right now is figuring out once everything is in there and growing, just to maintain, of course, the levels. And right now, what I'm doing, guys, because I'm trying to get an idea of what my parameters are, I test uh, you know, at least once or twice a week. Um, I initially made the mistake of not doing that, and I added some coral into the tank, just some frags, and I didn't think that they would really suck up anything out of the tank until a week later. I noticed that my parameters dropped, which is why I started dosing. Um, but do yourself a favor. I will say this: having a reef aquarium is very, very, very expensive. It can cost you a lot of money. Um, don't necessarily cheap out on the good stuff. You can always find deals on things, but I've been doing this for a little while now, and I remember when I first started, I didn't have the budget to do a lot of things. And what ended up happening is I would cheap out only to buy what I really intended to buy later on. So save yourself the time and money, and just go ahead and buy the stuff that you need. Also, with a reef aquarium, guys, take your time, be patient. One thing that I did do, this tank officially has been set up, I want to say, for about 3 months. Um, but what I did to keep myself, because of course you have this new aquarium, you want to populate it with stuff. And I know many of you guys will not agree with this, but immediately what I did was add salt water to the tank, and to cycle the tank, guys. And this is kind of where some folks may say that this is inhumane. But I'm in Houston, Texas, of course. I do not live that far from the water, maybe 30, 40 minutes away. And I went to a bait camp and bought live piggy perch. And that's what I use to seed my tank. Now, although you guys may say that that's probably inhumane, I will also tell you that if you look at the water that these animals come from, um, it doesn't compare to the aquarium as far as clarity and all that other good stuff. Now, that's not necessarily the smartest thing all the time, guys. Just because when you seed your tank, if those fish have any kind of parasites or anything like that, um, you're potentially introducing them to your tank. In that regard, I was pretty lucky, but after I seeded the tank, I actually returned the fish back to the ocean actually, and waited a little while. Added a piece of dead shrimp to the tank, and immediately had my refrigerant set up with Miracle Mud. And I believe that is the reason why, in conjunction to this awesome protein skimmer, that my nitrate is 0. I do not have nitrate in this tank. Also, with that said, guys, I do not have a large population of fish, and I do not plan on having a large population of fish. I may add 1 or 2 smaller fish back to the display tank, but the focus of this tank is going to be SPS corals. And so that's really it. And so far, the only issue that I've had with this tank um, is just really the low pH. The red slime algae, again, that is a nutrient problem. I don't have that, a nutrient and current problem. I don't have that. The hair algae, I do have a little bit of that in my display tank, which I don't necessarily have a problem with because it kind of keeps my snails and myself in Gobi fed. But I believe it's because I have my lights set on like I want to say maybe a 12 or 13,000 K setting, and for a lot of people, that's more white than the blue, especially with LEDs and as bright as they are. All right, guys. Well, thank you so much again for watching. If you have any questions, let me know. If you did like the video, do me a favor, like, and if you like the content that I have, go ahead and subscribe. Until next time, guys, take it easy. Be safe.